guys, so today I wanted to take a moment and reply to a comment that I saw recently, and I also saw a picture pop up on Instagram from someone that I'll talk about. Those of you in Jiu-Jitsu, you'll be kind of listening to this and going, yep, and then those of you that are sort of opposed to Jiu-Jitsu, you'll be sort of like stomping around and being angry about what I'm about to say, but you can do that, and that's fine. That's your God-given right. So had a comment from a guy named Rick the other day who said that the issue with BJJ in a street fight, this was in reply to one of my videos, the issue with BJJ in a street fight is because you should never go to the ground. You have no clue if the guy is actually alone. You may take them down and then you get them in a choke or whatever, and then some other person comes and kicks your head in. You should never go to the ground in a street fight. That was his thing. He's adamant. Never go to the ground in a street fight. Strong word, never is, right? It's a definite, never. And then on the other day, I was also looking around on Instagram, just kind of doing some work on there, and I got caught scrolling a little bit, as we all do, even if we step on for a minute. And I saw someone who posted a video. It was like how to survive like a fight situation. And one of the things that it had is it had a little picture of jiu-jitsu, and it had a big X on it, like you don't want to do jiu-jitsu, you don't want to go to the ground. And when I see this stuff, it makes me think a couple things. It makes me think, one, more than likely this person has probably never trained. That's the big thing. You've never really trained before, or you haven't trained enough to understand what's really going on. Because jiu-jitsu is far more than going to the ground. Sure, I will give you this. When you look at jiu-jitsu from the outside perspective, when those of you who don't really train that much, when you look at what we do, you're like, it's a bunch of grown men and women and kids wrestling around together. Yeah, I get it. That's what we do. That's our game. That's our fun part, right? That's where we get to like test things out. It's fun. But jiu-jitsu is more than that. It's more than simply that. So think about it this way. One of the best things that we get out of jiu-jitsu that nobody seems to talk about has nothing to do with technique at all. It's not a technical thing. Like if I take a brand new person, and this happens all the time, I can take someone that's a brand new person off the street, they come in and train with us, and they'll just wrestle around with us just a little bit, and they can be in pretty good shape. They'll be exhausted in like a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Right? Just huffing and puffing. And then meanwhile, the person that they were wrestling with is just kind of relaxed, right? This is the same with other combat sports. You can watch a person who does boxing, right? We have a whole boxing side of our gym. And I can watch guys where, you can see them pop, 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 hitting pads. And man, they look sharp, right? They look good. And then they go into the ring. And then one of our coaches will put them with another more experienced boxer and say, okay, jab drills. The other person is simply going to throw a jab at you and you want to deal with it. And then all of a sudden they get really tense and rigid. And then, after one round, they're breathing heavy in the corner. They're exhausted. You see this with all the combat-based and reality-based martial arts. When I say reality-based, I mean that they have some form of real fighting going on. They're sparring, right? Sure, it's not necessarily going to be real in the sense that like they have real knives and weapons and they're really punching each other constantly, but they have this realism where I am actually trying to punch you in the face with a boxing glove. I am really trying to choke you with my hands in jiu-jitsu, right? Or I'm really trying to throw you in judo or wrestling, whatever it might be. They're real. There's some reality there. It's not just katas. It's not theoretical. Like we know if this stuff works. So with those, one of the biggest things that we get, and you get this from jiu-jitsu, is that we learn how to deal with stress. We learn how to have someone grab us and we don't freak out. It's very normal to us. I've been training for 23 years now, and having someone grab me is such a normal thing. It just doesn't bother me. Now, most people, unless you've had fighting experience or you've been fighting on the streets, which most people in most Western countries, because they're safe and there's crimes relatively low in most places, you don't fight on the street all the time. So fighting is a very foreign thing to you. And as soon as it happens, most people will freeze up a little bit more than they'd like, or their adrenaline goes through the roof. They're not used to it. And some people, unfortunately, will freeze up completely and they can't do anything. And so one of the things that we get to do in jiu-jitsu is learn how to be in a problem-solving mindset in an incredibly high-stress situation. Again, sure, rolling in the gym is maybe not as stressful as it looks to some people, but if you've never trained, you'd be surprised. And if you ever compete in a competition, it may not look like that big of a deal. You'd be surprised. It'll take you for a loop. And so that's number one, right? A lot of people that say this about jiu-jitsu, well, hold on a second. What we're trying to get out of jiu-jitsu is not just the techniques, because a lot of the techniques that we're doing when we play our game of rolling, we're not going to use in a fight. We know that. we're playing the game because we want to develop that ability to deal with someone actually trying to fight us, right? That's stress. Now, here's the technical part of it. When people say that you don't want to go to the ground, well, yeah, of course, I don't want to go to the ground with someone if I was fighting them, if I don't have to. I mean, if I have to do it, I have to do it. But there's all kinds of things that don't involve that with jiu-jitsu. So first off, if someone grabs me, jiu-jitsu begins once the grabbing begins, right? It doesn't start once we get to the ground. If someone grabs onto my arm, my wrist, my neck, that is where jiu-jitsu begins. I start breaking grips off and peeling off. And again, sometimes it looks like it should be easy to break a grip. Try breaking a grip from someone who's really trying to hold you, and it can be more difficult than you think if you don't know how to do it efficiently under stress, which again, in jiu-jitsu, we learn how to do. And so it starts when we break off those grips, which could allow me then to get distance and get the hell out of there if I want to run away or make distance or whatever I need to do. Also, you develop the ability to learn different takedowns that don't involve you doing a double leg. For instance, a foot trip. Hitting a experienced grappler with a foot trip is pretty darn tough. If you're good with them, you can do it, but it's still tough. Hitting an untrained person or a person that has some street fighting experience, it's sometimes laughably easy how bad their balance and coordination is for something like a foot trip. I mean, you can trip them, and again, with a foot trip, I have very minimal grips going. I'm tripping you, and then I can get the hell out of there. I can run if I want to. Everybody has probably at some point watched the UFC or watched MMA. And so even if people have not fought or trained before, they understand how to reach for someone's legs, and they'll try to go for takedowns. You can watch the fights. Again, these things have become so ubiquitous. Everybody has an iPhone. Everybody has an Android. Everybody has a camera on their phone, and they record everything, right? They record every fight they see. So we see what fights look like against most people. And what you'll find is that a lot of times when people throw that first swing, unless they have some training to stay disciplined in their stance to continue to punch, they start to reach and grab. Or they might go for a takedown of some sort. I remember even in high school, people would they never wrestled a day in their life. UFC wasn't big, but they would dive for the legs and they would try to scoop them. That's what we call them, scoop them up. Well, you learn how to defend takedowns, so you don't have to go to the ground if you don't want to. And so you can get out of the situation. And I've had so many students who have used jiu-jitsu to get away from situations. I've had police officers who have been attacked by multiple people. One person's grabbing their neck, they got this person here. They're getting themselves out of position. They're able to create distance and then do what they got to do, right? So again, it's one of those things where I see people say this, that jiu-jitsu is it should not be used in a street fight because you don't want to go to the ground. Well, yeah, if we don't want to go to the ground, we don't have to, because by being a superior grappler, and when I say jiu-jitsu, a lot of times I just mean grappling in general, because judo, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu has become such a hodgepodge of things, because we have wrestling coming in, we have judo coming in, we have all the jiu-jitsu stuff we started with, and it's all evolving together because the rules are so open, right? It's just this hotbed of evolution for grappling. Being a good jiu-jitsu practitioner with good wrestling, good stand-up, good everything else, you decide where everything goes. If you don't want to go to the ground, you don't have to. You can make distance. You can if someone tries to grab you, you can break grips off. You can do all kinds of different stuff. And again, it makes you a very effective person. Now, this is not a call to say don't do striking. Again, I'm a big proponent to doing everything. Learn how to use your hands and your legs to defend yourself. Learn how to do things with grappling. But again, to say that, jiu-jitsu should not be used in a street fight because you don't want to go to the ground tells me that you don't understand what jiu-jitsu is all about in the whole spectrum. You know what it looks like when we roll and we're just playing around versus what it could be used for in a fight situation. So just an idea to chew on. You guys are welcome to chime in with your thoughts. What do you think? Leave the comments down below and I'll reply to them and check them out. I'm sure some of you guys already did. Some of you guys have the attention spans of gnats. So, just TikTok and everything else is destroy your attention span. So you got about 15 seconds and then you're like, I got to do something. But for some of you guys that actually watched the whole video, I applaud you. Go and comment down below and I'll check those out and I'll talk to you guys next time.